collision at New York's LaGuardia Airport overnight. You can see the jet. It's operated on behalf of Air Canada, tilted up in the air with its nose and cockpit destroyed. Now, officials say the plane had just landed. So think about that for a second. You think you're okay when it hit a fire truck that was crossing the runway. Both of the pilots, we're sorry to say, on this aircraft have been killed. Dozens of other people were hurt, though. Tom Hansen is on the scene. Tom, you wake up to this news, and it's hard to believe what you're seeing on television. Good morning to you. What can you tell us?
Hey there, Gayle. Good morning to you. It truly is unbelievable. Officials at LaGuardia Airport tell us that emergency response protocols were deployed immediately after this crash. Now, the airport remains closed until later this afternoon as investigators work to figure out what went wrong.
Emergency vehicles swarmed the runway at LaGuardia Airport in Queens, New York, after an Air Canada flight crashed into a Port Authority vehicle. The flight was arriving from Montreal and carrying 72 passengers and 4 crew when it hit the vehicle just before midnight. Before the crash, audio from the air traffic control tower reveals the controller had cleared the vehicle to cross the runway.
Truck 1 and Company, LaGuardia Tower, requesting to cross 4 at Delta.
Truck 1 and Company, cross 4 at Delta.
But then...
Stop, Truck 1. Stop. Stop, Truck 1. Stop.
The controller frantically calling for the vehicle to stop. Unfortunately, it was too late. Later, you can hear the controller talking about the incident with the pilot of a Frontier flight.
That wasn't good to watch.
Yeah, I know I was here. I tried to reach out to my stuff, and we were dealing with an emergency earlier, and I messed up.
No, man, you did the best you could.
These images show the front of the plane completely smashed and tilting in the air.
Sadly, the 2 pilots are confirmed deceased.
Earlier, the NTSB held a presser sharing that at least 40 people were hurt. 9 remain in the hospital. In a statement from the Port Authority, they say the rescue vehicle was responding to a separate incident when the crash happened.
And we also learned from that presser that that emergency vehicle was actually responding to a United Airlines flight that reported an issue with odor. That's what the air traffic controller was juggling with when that flight aborted takeoff, Nate.
Tom, thank you. For more on what happened, let's go to senior transportation correspondent Chris Van Cleve. Chris, good morning.
Well, good morning. One of the things that stands out there is that plane inverted as it's sitting there. We believe that occurred during the evacuation as the center of gravity shifted as people were getting off the plane. Why that happened will certainly be part of the NTSB investigation. But let's talk about what this controller was doing. It appears this controller was juggling an awful lot of things by himself. The NTSB will want to understand, was he working alone in the tower last night? You had this United flight. It was taking off. It aborted its takeoff because of a warning light in the cockpit. The pilots then radioed the tower saying there was an odor in the cabin and they needed a gate. The controller then started working to try to get them a gate, was making phone calls. You can hear that in the recording. Then the pilot comes on and says, this odor has gotten worse. I have flight attendants reporting feeling ill. We are declaring an emergency. Please send fire trucks, and we may have to get off this airplane quickly. He was dealing with all of that, trying to get equipment to that airplane, get that airplane in a safe spot. While all that's going on, there's other activity going on around this airfield that he's managing, including clearing that fire truck to cross runway 4. Guys, it was only about a second or two before he realized his mistake and tried to stop that truck, repeating, stop, stop, stop. It just didn't happen in time. The NTSB is going to want to understand what the fire truck could see. Were they able to see that airplane bearing down on them? From the sake of the pilots, there wasn't a lot they could do. They had just landed. They were slowing the plane down. It was still going about 24 miles an hour, we believe. Back to you.
All right, Chris, thank you very much. There are a lot of questions this morning about how something like this could happen. Joining us now is Robert Sumwalt. He's a former chair of the NTSB and a CBS News transportation safety expert. Bob, it's good to see you, but terrible circumstances to be chatting this morning. So when you're coming down a runway like this pilot or these pilots, trying to make sure that you get everybody to safely, and you see something in front of your path, is there anything at all the pilots could have done to prevent this?
Well, certainly the NTSB will be looking at that. And good morning, Glad. The NTSB will look at that. Usually pilots, you can apply brakes, you can apply thrust reversers, but if you don't have enough distance, there's not a lot that you can do.
And so you've got these pilots that are coming down the runway. You've got this truck operator in the middle of the road. Are you just trained to listen to what the air traffic controller is telling you to do? Because someone's going to wonder, could the pilot or could the truck operator have seen the aircraft?
Well, that's certainly what the NTSB is going to want to look at. They're going to want to see who could see who and when. And really, this accident is going to boil down to a couple of things: coordination and communication. Was there adequate coordination within the air traffic control tower cab? And was there adequate communications between all parties involved?
Bob, I know that you have landed at LaGuardia. You're familiar with it. I'm wondering what you could tell us about that. And I keep thinking about this air traffic controller who was on duty by himself, dealing with a lot of things. What is typical in staffing at an airport this size? And how big of a role do you think staffing will play in this particular accident?
Well, great questions, Gayle. Certainly the NTSB is going to want to sort through all of that to see. We've heard rumors that there's one controller on duty. I'd be very skeptical if that's actually true, but the NTSB will certainly look at the staffing model, see what was going on within the tower, and try and figure all this out.
Bob, speaking of the NTSB, what does an investigation look like from here, and how long do you believe it will take?
NTSB is going to have a lot to go on. They're going to have air traffic control tapes, radar tape, cockpit voice recorder from the airplane. They'll have witness interviews. They'll interview the controllers. So they'll have a lot to be able to go on. As far as the length of time, remember that January of last year we had a mid-air collision. The NTSB wrapped up that investigation in 1 year. So generally, I think they'll be able to get this one done between 12 and 18 months.
All right, Robert, we thank you for your time this morning. Our hearts go out to everybody involved in this accident this morning. It's still hard to process. Thank you. This is the scene after a collision between an Air Canada plane carrying 76 people and a fire truck collided on the runway. Both pilots were killed, we're sorry to say. Dozens of other people were hurt here. Officials say this happened on a runway as the plane came in for a landing. Tom Hansen is at LaGuardia for us this morning and can bring us up to date. Tom, good morning to you. What can you tell us?
Hey there, Gayle. Good morning to you. Well, investigators are on the ground trying to piece together exactly what led to that deadly runway collision overnight right here at LaGuardia. So I want to get us up to speed with what we know so far. Authorities say an Air Canada Express regional jet arriving from Montreal struck a Port Authority emergency vehicle on the runway shortly after landing a few minutes before midnight. Now, the aircraft was carrying 72 passengers and 4 crew members when it collided with a fire truck. The collision killed the 2 pilots. Sadly, more than 40 other people were hurt. So the big question now is, why was that emergency vehicle on an active runway? And according to ATC audio, the air traffic controller had given the clearance for the vehicle to respond to another emergency involving an odor on a United flight. But moments later, the controller realized his mistake and tried to stop the vehicle. So take a listen to that.
Stop, truck 1. Stop. Stop, truck 1. Stop.
Now, the FAA issued a ground stop and shut down operations at LaGuardia. The NTSB also has deployed a GO team to investigate further. And remember, Gayle, this is already a difficult time for so many flyers out there who are dealing with those long lines from the partial government shutdown. Gayle.
I know it's a very tough time. Tom, thank you so much.
Joining us now is Captain Laura Einsettler, a pilot with more than 30 years of experience. She's also someone who's very familiar with the runways in and out of LaGuardia. Captain, good morning. Good to see you. What was your initial reaction when you heard about this collision?
It's very unusual to have a situation where we're landing on the runway and you have emergency equipment operators on the runway itself. It's highly unusual, and it's very concerning, obviously, from the visuals that we see here.
It is. The visuals is what I can't get over. I just think, Laura, as a passenger, when the plane lands and you have that bump on the ground, I feel instant relief. And I would imagine a pilot feels the same. There just seemed to be a confluence of factors against this guy. There's one person on duty allegedly in the air traffic control tower, bad weather. This one person is dealing with an earlier emergency. Is there anything based on what you've heard so far, and I know it's still a very fluid situation, that the pilot could have done, that anything could have been done to avoid this?
Unfortunately, with situations like this, it's always a series of events. So we're going to be looking at things like where the communications broke down. Sometimes what happens is the emergency equipment operators are on a different frequency than we are. So sometimes we're not hearing, and especially once we're landing on the runway, as you said, you feel that, okay, we're on the runway, we're on the ground, and as pilots, our job is to then, of course, decelerate the aircraft safely. And we're looking at that point at those speeds to be turning off the runway. So it would be quite a shock for them to see if they even saw the emergency equipment there.
Captain, I know it's important after tragedies like this to not make assumptions or to place blame. But in your opinion, should we be looking at this as a rare incident, or does it point to a larger concern of aviation safety or possibly even staffing issues?
I would say it's all the above. Right now, we have so many distractions, and it's so critical to always, have heads up, eyes out, being situationally aware of every situation at all times to help try to prevent as best as we can situations like this from happening. And obviously, in aviation, we always learn so that we can always do better as we move forward.
Captain Einsettler, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate you.
Thank you.